Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fintech Solutions for Reopening Main Street. My name is David Morris. I'll be the moderator for this panel discussion. I'm the principal analyst covering payments and commerce at Insider Intelligence, which focuses on digital transformation in financial services. We've got an absolutely fantastic panel today. I think you've probably heard that a few times this week, but this is a blowout panel. I think you'll agree. For context, first, I'd just like to ask everyone in the audience to step back a bit, just for a moment. Just step back and remember what each of us has been through for these past 6 months. This pandemic in the United States is now over 6 months old. Think of how this situation, this catastrophic situation, has affected you, your neighbors, someone sitting next to you, in so many ways, creating so many challenges professionally and personally. I mean, at the same time, you're all consumers. We're all consuming during this particular period of time, interacting with brands, products, merchants, the whole way through this pandemic. You have a first row seat to some of the carnage out there. Think of the merchants in your community, for instance. There's a street where I live. It's just about 2 or 3 blocks away. It's packed with small businesses. It's been a vibrant part of my local community since I can remember, serving different needs, facing different challenges, operating in different verticals. Of course, we have digital small businesses woven and tucked into our communities as well. And all I can say is that every time I walk down that street over the last 2 to 3 months, I'm relieved to see so many of them still in business. Just think about the everyday challenges these businesses face in your community. Just the everyday challenges, all the things required to run a successful business. Think about operations, inventory management, payroll, staffing, managing customer relationships. Think about the financial angle, navigating cash flow, funding, all of the expense management that goes into it, paying for all of the hardware and the software. And of course, the point of sale, you have just this sea change, adapting to a highly competitive retail world, increasingly reliant on digitization. You have to navigate how to sell your products and services and how to get them to your customers, addressing how and when customers want to pay, what methods, what devices. And that has nothing to do with the pandemic. Now you have a pandemic that comes along, takes these challenges and amplifies them tremendously, pushing digitization into maximum overdrive as well. And that's why this panel discussion is important, truly important. And we have 3 panelists with their fingers on the pulse of small business today. Each of them is positioned to shed light on how fintech solutions are helping small businesses through the pandemic, how they can continue to help them as the pandemic fades. We have Lee Arthur, for example. Lee is a principal in a leading venture builder. One of them, Liberis, provides small business financing with what I would call some fintech magic. Welcome, Lee. We also have Keith Dunphy. Keith heads NCR's hospitality and small and mid-sized business sales, including the NCR Silver point-of-sale platform. More broadly, he guides hospitality sales, customer service, and operations across the business. Welcome, Keith. We also have Cyndy Lobb. Cyndy manages Square's commerce platform, directing its product and engineering teams toward growing and innovating the platform. Welcome, the 3 of you. I'm so excited to be able to hear what you have to say today. Let's dive in here by focusing on the brick and mortar side of the equation. Small business brick and mortar operations are those that have historically tilted that way. Maybe to set it up, how would you assess the resilience of these businesses facing all of these pandemic-driven challenges? Is there a way to identify what's causing the pain? Where do you see the most pain? And maybe most importantly, how have you been able to address the pain points that you're seeing out there? Keith, we start with you.
Thanks, David. That puts me in pretty daily contact with a broad group of customers, call them like 40, 50, 60,000 customers across the US who have been on the restaurant side, probably some of the most hardest hit by the pandemic. Historically not overly well capitalized segment of the market, had top line revenues kind of dry up overnight, and it was heartbreaking to watch. As you talked about your Main Street experience, my Main Street experience, and the restaurants and bike shops and small businesses that we would walk in and frequent every day, all of a sudden kind of struggling to survive. So it was really, really, really tough, and it is really tough. I mean, we're seeing the recovery, but it's being staged and it's being impacted. What I've seen the most and is, we talk about resilience and just the creativity that the pandemics spawned in terms of not just people looking for digital channels, people getting creative with their menu, people getting creative with, curbside, patio dining, meal kits, etc. So it was just, it was great to see. I think a lot of lessons learned. I think we got a lot of work to do to get out of it. From an NCR perspective, in terms of we learned fast the issues, and deployed all we could to figure out how to help, whether that was access to capital where we could, whether it was helping with billing where we could, but more importantly, helping find technology solutions to open up new channels. How do we go help customers quickly go to online ordering, quickly go to curbside, quickly deploy loyalty programs in order to be able to access their customers? So I am, I know we've got a lot more to deal with going forward, but we look forward to figuring out how to continue to help customers through this and as they get into the new norm.
Great, thank you, Keith. Maybe Cyndy, is there a way to go from there? Can you?
Yeah. Yep. Lots of yes ands to everything that Keith just said. COVID doesn't discriminate, right? It's hitting every vertical, every small business owner. They're having to hustle. And really, we're seeing that same trend, which is the business owner saying, okay, things are changing around me. I need to change with it. And what do I need to do? And so our focus has really been on looking at the jobs they're trying to achieve. We use the jobs to be done framework and saying, how can we move things even faster? Square has been focused on omni-channel selling for a few years now, and also on platform investment. So that really positioned us well, and earlier this year, to be able to do quick pivots and doing a lot of the same of what Keith has already brought up, which is the curbside, local delivery, on-demand delivery, really just putting a lot more power into the seller's hands themselves, so that as they're seeing the pain points ebb and flow, which they're ebbing and flowing. It's not the pain points now are different than the pain points in March, and the sellers are just continually trying and changing and showing lots of resilience across the board. So that's super exciting. And as we're launching all of those features, you see really strong signals of adoption of those features, which is part of that creativity. In Q2, 1 in 3 sellers that boarded onto Square Online, which is our online selling platform, was brand new to Square. So this really has leapfrogged businesses that were traditionally brick and mortar that might have taken a little bit longer to get online, are now hopping online just to serve their buyers. And as their buyer needs change, they're changing with them. And the other thing is, in store, they're making changes. They're really focusing on contactless payments and being able to, do NFC payments, mobile wallets, and even going further than that, where we have some products where you can send a buyer an online checkout link, and they can be standing there but check out online if that's the way they'd like to do it. So really, it's that embracing the omni-channel mentality of meeting the buyer where they are, and we're seeing sellers doing that and doing their best. And I applaud all of the effort that they've been doing.
Great, thank you, Cyndy. Lise, do you want to follow up on anything that Keith and touched on?
I think what Cyndy said about everybody is hurting and had to deal with it is true, but I do think the pain is unequal. I think businesses that rely on kind of upper income spending, those on 60K plus, are the ones that hurt the most, because those people stopped spending and traveling to work, and they moved all their money to groceries. I think travel outside the home is down 7%. Actually, travel to work, where offices would often give passing trade to bars, hospitalities, etc., is down 56%. And the problem is still right here now with us. We've got 24% of businesses that aren't open, and the government PPP has helped. I think the way the government moved really fast, and a lot of fintechs moved fast with them to get funding where it was needed, was really impressive. And we helped our businesses get access to that PPP as quickly as we can, but that's run out. I think the effect is that the lowest income Americans who work in those businesses that serve the upper quartile, which tend to be in-person businesses, they need more support. And I spoke to several of Liberis' small business owners recently, and they really are running on empty, those ones that have that impact that's most felt. Those physical businesses that rely on the upper income people coming into offices and work and dining out and being social. They've still got their core rent costs. I spoke to one business owner who's a father and son, and they said kind of they would use the money to hire someone so they could get some rest. So I think there's still some help to be done by the government, and more funding to come is the way that I think about it.
Great. Thank you very much, Lee. I think there's some things definitely we, in all three of these cases, we'll just keep following up on here, because you're touching a little bit on the e-commerce side. When I think of e-commerce small businesses, if you were to oversimplify, you think, well, I guess these businesses get a pass. They're already set up and they're ready to go. They don't have to do this kinds of shift. But I think that's probably a very false assumption. How resilient are our businesses on the purely e-commerce side of the equation? Maybe we can approach this the same way, looking at the particular things that are causing the pain and where the most pain is, the pain points. And again, I think most importantly for our audience, how have you been able to address these pain points? Cyndy?
Yep. So again, I'm going to yes and everything that Lee said. Definitely the changing buyer behaviors and habits are having a dramatic impact in how sellers are able to move forward and run their business. E-commerce businesses have not been completely insulated from the impacts of COVID, especially the ones that are doing omni-channel selling mixed inline and in-store. The source of where they're getting their orders from is changing. The volume of orders is changing. The expectations for those orders are changing. There's increased pressure on being able to get the same quality of experience, the same quality of product coming from an online experience that someone would get in store, which is very challenging. And I am very empathetic. I've heard some of similar feedback that the sellers are working harder than ever. So what we've tried to do is really focus on how do we continue to give them time back. It's always been an important mantra at Square to serve their jobs, do it the most efficiently. And so some of the things that we're doing is really focusing on how all of those buyer changes are going to domino into seller operations and improving the operations for where they need it. So we've really spent a lot of time increasing the fidelity of our online ordering integrations with third parties, as well as some of our features within our Square Online set. We're also increasing our education about selling online. So I know the question started with sellers that were already online, but they might have been online like just testing it out, not really doing the majority of their business there. And when everything shifted dramatically, there's different operational impacts, different economies, different costs associated with selling online. So what can we be doing to help close that education gap for sellers is another place that we've spent a lot of time. And we're really trying to make sure, for several years now, Square has been making sure we have cohesion across our ecosystem. So as a seller needs additional features, like let's say they need to take advantage of invoices for the first time, or maybe they realize they have to itemize their inventory because now things are selling out much quicker. They really need to figure out how much they have on hand, trying to make it easier for as they pivot their business and they adopt new features, that there's cohesion across that experience, and it's really easy to decide what you need, jump in, and get started.
Thank you, Cyndy. Keith, how about from your perspective?
Yeah, well, let me try not to overlap. There's a lot of ground covered, and I think those are all a lot of great points around around the e-commerce channel. I guess the one thing I would say in terms to build on Cindy's point about they're not isolated from issues is you've seen on the e-commerce side a ton of supply chain issues, right? As parts of the world, it may be the e-commerce may be the last mile, but they're highly dependent upon the rest of that supply chain to be kind of fully operational. So we saw lots of impacts on that side of the business, whether it's me as a consumer or some of the customers in that space. And on the leapfrog comment, maybe I'll build on that one a little bit. To us, from an NSTAR perspective, the whole bricks and mortar and e-commerce channel is really starting to consolidate, and now people have realized the need that more and more and more, right? So the need for traditional brick and mortars to go online and build that e-commerce channel is absolutely critical, right? As you've seen, the number of the amount of off-premise dining, the constriction of the capacity in the dining room, the emergence of the guys like the Grubhubs and the Uber Eats and the DoorDashes of the world, helping the traditional customer open up that e-commerce channel has become one of the main ways that we've been able to help kind of a lot of our smaller customers move into that omni-channel experience, move into opening up those other routes to market, and realize that they are no longer a brick and mortar business, right? Nor are they an e-commerce business. They're an omni-channel business that's in the middle, and success is when you can activate both of those channels and figure out how do I best serve, give best experience to my in-store consumers and the safest experience to my in-store consumers, and how do I open up my new channel because there's new sources of revenue that I know I need to tap into, and the ability of a technology provider to help our customers make that transition becomes absolutely critical and a key part of their success and a key part of our success in terms of our ability to help service them and help move them into kind of the new norm that we'll probably end up coming back to at some point.
Yeah, the new norm. That's something I think we'll hear that phrase again.
Sure.
Maybe let's segue into just more of a product topic. Small business funding, merchant capital, so forth. Can you shed some light on what's happening there? Things to me come to mind, these are the different kinds of risk models that are associated with the fintech, quote unquote, small business lending, also just the roles that these entities, and you would be participants in this, of course, that, these solutions have played during the pandemic. Lee, you mentioned PPP, but there's, I think, some latitude here to talk about that a little bit more when you think about, funds facilitation, disbursement, thinking about getting payments to people faster, both on the consumer and the merchant side. Lee, why don't we start with you? What's on your mind here?
Yeah, so if I just give how we do it at Liberis and maybe talk about some of the innovation that's happening. So Liberis is an embedded lending platform. It's API focused, and it actually integrates with large technology partner companies both in the UK and Europe and in the US. So the example in the US is WorldPay Working Capital. So WorldPay offer WorldPay Capital to its small business customers. And with Liberis and partners like WorldPay, we do this to 1.5 million small businesses across UK, Europe, and US every month is our reach. So Liberis exists because banks cannot fund the majority of small businesses. Their FICO scores are too low is a proxy to think about it. They're too risky for typical bank risk criterion loans. And we fund, and we can fund successfully and within risk criteria that we set based on merchants' transaction data that we're receiving daily. And then we receive payments back daily as a percentage of sales, which means the merchants' payments are smoothed. So with the ups and downs of their business, the payments move up and down, and they really like that, and it helps small businesses, which tend to be very seasonal businesses. So with WorldPay Working Capital, which Liberis powers in the US, we moved immediately to get PPP funding to our customers. And I feel the government moved very fast as well on that, and a lot of other fintechs did fantastic work. And now we continue to advance to merchants again after a couple of months kind of on hold as we let the PPP run its course. And what we're seeing is a real need, however, is for more of that. But when I think about fintechs in general, we now have the ability to implement and add funding products at every part of the value chain of small businesses, from when they're adding inventory to when they're buying inventory for themselves, when they're buying marketing, or when they're buying equipment for their store. We can all target new finance products exactly in the flow of work. To Cyndy's point, what's the job to be done, and embedding finance in those products. So fintechs can really help get capital to businesses that banks can't fund. And that's going to really power the economy coming back. And we saw that with PPP. The minute the government let Cabbages and others of this world get involved, the scale of reach and speed with which funding got to small businesses was amazing. And that can continue as more fintechs develop funding products in the UK and insert them just at the right time into the flow of work for small businesses.
Fascinating. And Cyndy, I know that you have some expertise in this arena as well. Square does a lot in this space. Any way to kind of follow up or build on what Lee's talking about here?
Yeah, this whole conversation has just been a series of yes ands. I think all of us are really focused on getting down to the brass tacks of what is causing the most pain to our sellers and how do we help them, right? That's what we've been doing for years, all of us, all of our companies. The spirit of it is, how do we bring that economic empowerment to all of our users? And sellers, in my experience, they go into business because they love what they do, but to do what they love, a lot of times they need money to get started or to stay in business. As Lee said, in the wherever they are in the cycle of the business, how do we make sure that we're supporting them through the ebbs and flows? Square was fortunate enough to be a PPP lender. We're very proud of the fact that we were able to support more than 80,000 small businesses with more than $800 million in access to funds. I do think that was a game changer, and it's exciting, and we're super proud of it. But beyond that, we continue to try and look for ways to support our sellers with access to their funds as quickly as possible. So we've always had the ability to get instant access to their processed payments. As part of the changes we made this year, we've hardened that platform a little bit more, reduced some friction to make it even easier. And we've also extended how they can use those funds within the Square ecosystem. So if they're a Square payroll seller, now they can use those funds to fund their Square payroll. And it also allows us for them to pay their employees faster. So with Square Payroll on-demand paying for their employees, we're stretching out the access of funds beyond even just our seller to their employees. And that kind of hits on some of the pain points that Lee was hitting earlier, where it goes all the way down to the end buyers and making sure that everyone has access to the funds they need to engage in the economy. It's just a very interesting problem, and we're doing everything we can to make sure that there's solutions at each step of the way.
Fantastic. Well, there's all sorts of things that the three of you have brought up here. Maybe the way forward is to think about the way forward. How much of all of this change, whether it's the utilizing mobile wallets. I think of seems to be an uptake in QR codes, software as a service, quicker payments, all of those things, even on top of what you've discussed. I mean, what's going to stick here? What's going to stick to the wall? Assuming, which I assume we all think that this pandemic will end at some point, hopefully quite soon, and things can get back to some semblance of normalcy for this country. What's going to stick? What's the small business landscape going to look like from your point of view? And how do you envision being able to help merchants address these things over time? Anyone want to go? What do you think?
Yeah, it's Keith. I'm happy to take first run at it, and then we can build on. I think when I think about the new norm, there's probably two big themes. The one first is omni-channel. We've talked a lot about in terms of brick and mortar converging with e-commerce and the need for small businesses to find alternative routes to market. When I think about the second theme, I would call is kind of the contactless experience. And when I think about the restaurant space specifically, the days of being handed a pen and a folio and giving your card to someone to disappear are being challenged now, right? In terms of mobile pay, you mentioned QR codes and mobile wallets and mobile payments. I think that becomes a key part of the new norm. And I think that the way to bring technology solutions to the restaurant space specifically to help them keep their employees safe, keep their customers safe, improve consumer confidence, get people willing to come in and sit down in that dining room, even if it is, 25, 50, 75% capacity, is critical. So I think, the contactless focus within the restaurant space specifically becomes a key part of the new norm. And I think it changes the operating model for the typical restaurants. I think that people want to walk in, they want to be able to, scan a QR code, pull up a menu, order online, push their, self-service in a way where I don't have to physically interact with a common device. Becomes a key part of how people want to exchange. I mean, there'll be obviously, it'll impact quick service, different than fine dining and fast casual. But I think that that's something that sticks for sure, as well as I said, omni-channel. I'll let maybe someone else comment on that, but I think the omni-channel experience and the contactless experiences are really become themes of the new norm.
Yeah, I was just thinking of the coffee I got this morning. I used mobile pay and order ahead. This was something I never would have done before, but this is convenient, isn't it? You're changing behavior. So what else are you thinking?
I think we've got an amazing opportunity for a huge amount of innovation, because necessity is the mother of innovation, right? Which is what we're seeing. Technology's just come forward 10 years in what would have taken years to get QR codes, for example, adopted. And the kind of the things that drive kind of innovation and change are either some regulatory change, or an innovation forcing some regulatory change, and the two feed off each other. And so I think what we're going to see, and I think the government are really going to be pro this, is the state-by-state financial regulation that we've got right now that protects banks at a state level. I think we're going to see, hopefully, that disappear in the next 2 or 3 years and have a more open banking model like we have in the UK and other parts of the world. And that absolutely trampolines innovation. You suddenly get a lot of fintechs who can unbundle financial products, and you get these micro products inserted exactly as users and small business need them in their journeys to either buy inventory or marketing, whatever those other products talked about, as Cyndy's doing with Square already. So I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on kind of typical banking, state by state regulation, and looking for a national OCC bank charter, which will unleash a whole amount of innovation. And what innovation does is just make things go faster. And what that does means small businesses can make more profit and more sales every month than they did before, because we've squeezed the time that they need to do things. And we've also given them a hell of a lot more cash flow. Anytime we're helping them with cash flow, which helps them get money in faster, delay paying until the sales are coming in, all those things will drive innovation and improvements in the business. And there's an army of fintechs trying out now lots of different micro services to cut off parts of what small businesses need and deliver new growth. So I think there's going to be an explosion in innovation because we need it to bring the economy back and get that 25% of demand back quicker. And it'll be a mix of regulation changes, hopefully, as well as fintechs and other leaders innovating with new products to help small businesses be more successful. And I think the other thing we're going to see a hell of a lot of is data and information services to small business to help them either market online better because it's new to them, or understand what's working and managing their inventory better. So I think bundling, payments, finance, and data and information services so they can make better decisions is a big trend that we should see as well.
Yeah, so again, yes, and all of it. So my version of everything Lee has been saying is really, I see it as an evolving economy. So the expectations that we had before are no longer the expectations we have now. We're definitely expecting faster change. We're watching change happen quicker. And so where we started this conversation with resilience, that's really where we are. The ability to have, resilience, a growth mindset, quickly be, open to change, bias to action. And those are all the qualities that bring small business owners to becoming small business owners to begin with. So I think it's very interesting to see that cohort adapting to this, because I think that they are naturally, those are the things that excite them. So they're willing to dig in and adopt as things change, which I think is actually helping move things along faster as well. And then I think fundamentally, we've talked a lot about omnichannel and how this moved sellers thinking about omnichannel forward. And I think that's really the underlying commitment of omnichannel, is meeting the buyer where they are. So, serving the buyer where they want to buy, how they want to buy. And the more that sellers can embrace that mentality of meeting the buyer where they are, the quicker we'll see overall recovery, because the reality is all of us are buyers. And I'm sure that you'll all join me in saying that, you've all got emotional and practical needs that have changed in the last 6 months. The way I was thinking as a person 6 months ago is definitely different than I do now. So being able to see that and adapt to it and react to it, and really find what the new problems are, and meeting those buyers with what they're looking for in this new, hopefully soon post-COVID world. I think we're still in the middle of COVID world, but I really feel like there's a lot of opportunity. I think this point was made earlier that it's a phase of disruption, and anytime there's disruption, there's lots of opportunities. So I'm excited to see what problems innovators choose to pick up and run with.
Yeah, I mean, that's the irony of this, and it's just the unbelievable innovation that we're seeing, out in the marketplace. A few things that you've touched on, and Keith, I think you you said something about the end of pen and paper, and Cyndy, you've talked about kind of this holistic, quick need to be able to allow omni-channel businesses to move across the organization. We're talking about Lee mentioning being able to access funds, across the need chain, I might say. I think of software as a service when I hear some of these things. This trend already in significant motion prior to the pandemic makes me wonder if we're going to have any point of sale hardware left in a couple of years. You think that's an overreaction? Is the age of point of sale hardware coming to an end? And what about kind of framing some of what you've discussed in terms of this software as a service trend that we're seeing out there?
I'll offer some thoughts on that. So, as a small business kind of sales and operations leader for NCR, who has had strong roots in the hardware business, I'll tell you, I have zero conversations with customers about POS hardware. To me, it's about how we enable a solution, how we deliver a service, how we help them run their business, engage with their customers. So, it's not a hardware market. It is a great services market in terms of the ability to package technology solutions that help our customers run their business, engage with their consumers, operate efficiently and effectively. But I don't lie awake thinking about a hardware business. I lie awake thinking about how do I do a better job servicing the customers that we have, and I think that's consistent with what they expect from us. So that's my 2 cents.
Any follow up there, Cyndy or Lee?
Well, I've got every piece of hardware you can get. I think the more technology happens, the more pieces I seem to carry around. So I don't necessarily think different options mean that old options don't go out the window. I think there's some transfer over years where you can now go in a restaurant, pick your menu with a QR code, pay with a QR code, and not have to touch a thing. But I think there's going to be years of multiple solutions as people's habits, etc., change. So, I think it takes a lot longer to move things, and actually, hardware is quite useful for people to understand what to do. So when you think about user journeys in terms of entering a restaurant or a bar or things like that, it's incredibly useful to have pieces of hardware, a host, etc., there with a host stand to let people in. So I think a transfer of time, but I definitely think we've all started to enjoy this smoother way of paying and getting what we want, the frictionless way.
Cyndy, any closing thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think Lee nailed it where he said it's an arc to change behavior. Personal checks are still being used. I think all of us would be excited to see that continue to lower in adoption. I think the real heart of it is that we've got to look at the solution that the seller needs in the moment that they're trying to transact with the buyer. And I think there's going to be a lot more diversity in how they're able to transact with that buyer with like QR codes and other new technology coming out. But I do think from a business operations standpoint, there's no way we can eliminate all of the operations needs that are currently served by some of the hardware that sellers have on their premise.
Well, I wish we had a couple more hours, but we don't. We have about 40 seconds. So maybe with that, I'd just like to thank the three of you for the insight that you've shared with me and the audience today. I hope everyone out there has gained some insight into what these three are doing out there in a market that really needs assistance. Thank you for joining us, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Go eat at your local restaurant.